Maloila Maria ho eki lele ai kai ngā hono kotoa, and I hope you're keeping well with the impact of COVID-19. Now, joining me is the CEO of the Pacific Tourism Organization based in Fiji, Mr. Chris Cocker. Nisambula malo lele, Chris.
Malo lele, John, and warm Pacific greetings.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us on this Talanoa. Firstly, let's start with the impact of the COVID-19 on the Pacific tourism sector.
Yeah. John, thank you for the opportunity. I think as probably I had mentioned before, I need to sort of give you an overview how important tourism is for our listeners in this case. Tourism is a key economic driver for the Pacific. In our 2018 statistics, Pacific tourism's contribution to regional GDP was about 11.1%. It generated about US 3.8 billion to the Pacific region's earnings for 2018. However, one of the key sort of weaknesses with our Pacific tourism sector, we're the hardest hit, particularly because we're highly vulnerable to climate change, natural disasters, and pandemics such as the COVID-19. And if you could bear with me in terms of looking on a global overview, the UN WTO is predicting a 20 to 30% decline in international tourist arrivals. In terms of the Asia-Pacific region, which we're included there, they estimate a 9 to 12% decrease in international tourist arrivals. If we look at it in terms of tourism receipts, it's between US 300 to 450 billion, and that's globally in this case. The hardest hit, according to UNWTO, is 80% of all our global tourism businesses are SMEs in this area. If we look at the Pacific in this case, as I mentioned earlier in some of my other interviews, we are at ground zero in terms of tourism arrivals, receipts, air access, tourism businesses functioning, and also employees. And I think if we look at the history of tourism in the past 20 years, this COVID-19 impact is the worst that we've ever experienced in our time in tourism, because if compared to SARS and also other pandemics that have happened in the past, this is quite drastic in this case. If you are looking at the Pacific itself, I think the countries that will definitely be drastically impacted are the ones who are highly dependent on their GDPs on tourism in this case. And these are like countries like Fiji, French Polynesia, Cook Islands, Samoa, Vanuatu, New Caledonia, etc. And those are probably top 5 to 6 destinations in the region. Give you an example, if it's in terms of Fiji itself, according to the financial institutions, Fiji stands to lose about 600,000 air arrivals and about 143 cruise arrivals in 2020, which translates to about Fijian dollars 1.4 billion for air arrivals and about 10.3 million lost in tourism receipts for the cruise sector in this case. If we look at a smaller destination in this case, and I'm looking not at the tourism sector, but according to the Tongan government, the GDP loss for the overall economy of Tonga would be over 60 million pa'anga for 2020. And if this pandemic continues into the first 2 quarters of 2021, according to the Tongan government, the GDP loss will be about 200 million forecast. So the impact on the economy of our member countries or Pacific countries is large, and also the impact to the tourism industry of a country such as a leading destination as Fiji. If we look at in terms of employment, in terms of employment, Fiji will be losing up to 74,000 jobs, Samoa maybe 7,000, and Vanuatu about 21,000 according to the financial institutions. And this will be felt across the whole tourism industry as a whole, but particularly the highest impact will be our SMEs, which makes up about 95% of our tourism sector.
Now, tell me about some of the help that the government is doing in the region. Do you know if there's help available for the tourism sector in the Pacific?
We're already starting to talk with donors, and particularly New Zealand has been very kind to conduct a Pacific tourism impact assessment in this case. So in the past 2 weeks, there is a company that's been assigned, and I'm talking to them every week, etc., giving an update and also passing context where they could assess. And this will help them determine what the actual impact is, and also find ways of best in terms of developing recovery activities in this case. But I'm very happy to see our countries addressing this issue quickly as well. I mean, there is a declaration of states of emergencies in a lot of our member countries, and also curfews being set up, etc. Because I think the key to this, John, is containment once it hits our member countries. Out of the 20 Pacific Island member countries of SPTO, 6 been affected and have confirmed positive cases, while the remaining are still, there's 0 cases but suspected cases, and they're doing work on this. But I've picked up a few of the governments being very proactive in this case, providing a sizable monetary and physical rescue packages to help cushion the blow in our Pacific countries. For example, Fiji has already announced a 1 billion stimulus package for the tourism sector, and also for the economy as a whole. PNG announced yesterday a US 1.6 billion economic stimulus package. Wow. Vanuatu has announced a 4 billion Vatu stimulus package. Tonga just announced a 60 million paanga economic social stimulus package, and all the other countries I know will be coming up with stimulus packages. And this is when our governments are very helpful to us in this case, because definitely the private sector needs their support and to help us in this case rebuild ourselves moving forward. And I noticed that the ADB is providing grants, the World Bank, to assist our Pacific countries, basically to address the issue on the ground. In this case, and then as well as to help in terms of moving forward in recovery.
Can you tell me about in terms of the banks? Have they done anything in terms of the Pacific to help our tourism or tourist operators?
Yes, they do. I know in Fiji and also Tonga as well, and some of the other countries, the banks have provided sort of holiday for mortgages for businesses that are affected. They've also, particularly for the employees that have been laid off, etc. They've given special arrangements for them in this case. So it's not only the governments are helping out, but also the banking institutions in this case have reached out to help out with the affected in this case, because I feel for the businesses who have mortgages, etc., in this case, and loans, because those are the ones who are badly hit in this case. Those who do not have loans, etc., I mean, they will be affected, but it's the ones that who have loans and even the employees, etc., that have loans are really impacted in this case.
Let's talk now about support from other nations like New Zealand. What do you think New Zealand can do, or Australia and some of the big brothers that are helping the Pacific? What can we do now to help the Pacific?
Yeah, I think and New Zealand's a step forward in doing the assessment, etc. It all depends what the survey results come back with regards to this as well. But I think a stimulus package provided by the donors, assistance to regional organizations such as ourselves, will be very helpful, particularly with what we've done, especially we've established our Pacific Wave Recovery Fund, because the good thing is, this is the time when you can pool your resources in one place and be able to assist our member countries in one, going through one channel or something like this in this case, because all of us are impacted in the region, in this area. But I think what the assistance would be is it should be very targeted and focused helping our private sector in the tourism industry, because these are the engines of our economies and growth in this case. And our role, particularly as an intergovernmental organization, as well as our governments is a facilitating role and helping, making sure that this support reaches out to the right people at the right time as well, and very targeted.
And just the last question, in terms of recovery, how long do you think the tourism sector will recover from this?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, and probably got lost with all the information I shared, the best case scenario, about 6 months to 10 months. The worst case is a year from today, in terms of recovery, etc. It was interesting, just talking to some of our contacts overseas. The Chinese market won't start traveling to the Pacific if all goes well, particularly probably next year, around next year, first quarter. In the next 6 months, they'll just have domestic tourism and visit within their own country, in this case, and same with all our other markets. So the other key areas that needs to be done, it's not only it's trying to recover our source markets, and mind you, John, 68% of the Pacific's key source markets is Australia and New Zealand. In this case, and there is with any of our recovery strategies or plans, it needs to reach out as well to our source markets, whether it's Asia or Europe, but Australia and New Zealand are key markets.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, and we wish you the very best, and you and the team during this very unprecedented time. Mahalo apito.
Thank you, John. And I just say one last thing to all our tourism industry and all our stakeholders. I think it's the time for us to stand together and we can beat this pandemic. Take care. Thank you.
Mahalo apito. Thank you very much.
Mahalo apito.